Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Value of Wrestling, and it's time once again for another episode of Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's another episode of Big Time Rants, along with me, the Big Time. I'm here, as always, once again, doing what I do. Let's kick back this music a little bit. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Big Time Rants. I'm the Big Time, right here on the Value of Wrestling YouTube channel, bringing you a new video for today, which is August 28th, 2023. Yes, that's the day of the recording of this. When this actually comes out to you, I don't know, but I'll get it over to our editor, and hopefully our editor gets it out quickly. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what can you say? What can you say? The news is everywhere. The things are breaking left, right, and sideways, and wrestling is in a stir again. Yesterday, the biggest event in professional wrestling happened, All In, live from Wembley Stadium in London. A great event, a good show. It had some great matches on it, and of course, it was also announced by the end of the show that it will be a traditional thing. I guess we're going to see All In next year at around the same time. I think it said August 25th, back in London at Wembley. And so we'll see that again, and All Out will be in Chicago again next year in the same time frame. So we're going to have two back-to-back pay-per-views with AEW. And hopefully things will get better because AEW, and it was also announced, they're in working agreement with hopefully Warner Brothers to do some streaming service, and maybe we'll get what would be more referred to a premium live event schedule, where you can pay a monthly subscription service and get all of the AEW content along with premium live events, pay-per-view events, whatever they may call them. So that's in the works. We also know that there's a Wrestling Dream coming out in October, another project between AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So awesome stuff coming out of that. But the big news that's just over-swerving the market and taking away from a lot of what All In did, it's unfortunately the CM Punk Jack Perry. The Jack Perry incident that happened backstage before even All In all started out. So here we are, almost 1 year removed from All Out, and now we have Brawl In. So Brawl Out, Brawl In, all the names, all the hype about it. So I know we covered this a little bit on our Break It Down episode, our newest show here on Value of Wrestling. Break It Down. We hope to continue that in a great showing. We really want that to be a roundtable forum where we bring people in and discuss wrestling. And we thought All In, being the largest wrestling event in pro wrestling history, that was the right place to debut that show. Next week, we're going to do some independent shows for each pay-per-view. A, WWE's Payback, and B, AEW's All Out. So we will do different things for them, and hopefully we'll be bringing you more Break It Down. But this is Big Time Rants, and this is basically where I come out and rant, or I just talk to you, or I just shoot the shoot with you. And that's what I'm hoping to get out of this, because I want to express stuff that's going on. So here we are again, All In. And a couple weeks back, we had an incident between Jack Perry and CM Punk. And the news sources vary on this, and I'm just going based on what I've read, what I've found out. I don't have any firsthand knowledge. And of course, I guess the first thing I want to say to this is I don't know Jack Perry. I don't know CM Punk. I like both. I like both guys. I've loved CM Punk for a long time. I think CM Punk brings a lot to the table. I think CM Punk is a great wrestler. I think he's magical on the mic and can do a lot of great things. Now, Jack Perry is a young talent that has the world of an opportunity for him. I don't necessarily like some of the things that are going on with his presence or his current character, mainly the music. I think you're presenting a character in one way, but the music and the whole package that you're representing, just they don't match for me. It doesn't go where it should go. But hey, that's me. Other people may love it. Other people may like it. Some people say it's getting him heel heat, so it's working. Maybe, maybe not. But I think both these guys are talented in their own ways, and it's sad that there was this confrontation. So initially, the confrontation happened a few weeks back with Glass. Jack Perry wanted to use Glass to to real glass instead of fake glass in a match, and maybe it was this match. I'm not quite sure. I understand all the connected dots, but there was a confrontation between him and CM Punk about using real glass or not using real glass. So what it seems like is Jack Perry wanted to use real glass, and CM Punk came up to him, as we understand it, or at least as I understand it, we'll take it that way. As a veteran in the wrestling business, in the squared circle, whatever you want to call it, he is a veteran. He has time under his belt, and he went to Jack Perry, and I guess tried to talk to Jack Perry about possibly not using real glass for whatever reason, whether it was for his safety or it wasn't necessary, or maybe it was overdoing it. There was also reason to believe that Punk may have thought that Jack Perry was trying to use real glass to get out of work because Jack Perry was saying, well, I can use real glass and then I can go and not have to worry about working or something. There was some misunderstanding, I think, initially. Jack Perry seemed, from what it looks like, Jack Perry had time off coming, or scheduled time off. Was going to use the real glass to make it look like, okay, he got put through real glass, so yeah, this is why, he's injured, kayfabe, whatever, and he's going to go off the screen, go take a vacation, go have some time off, go refresh himself. Good for him. So I think there was some miscommunication there, but again, I think CM Punk, as a veteran, was trying to help Jack Perry go, hey, maybe this is not the best idea. Maybe not use real glass. You don't have to do that when we have all these other things to make your career, keep your body, keep you safe, keep your body safe. So maybe you can be around longer. And obviously Jack Perry didn't like that. A conflict of attitudes. Who says Punk being a senior vet trying to give us input. And I wasn't there, so I don't know what exactly was said that may have triggered this issue to be blown out a little more. It seems that Jack Perry said, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. There was rumors and speculation that management came in and told Jack Perry he couldn't, but Jack Perry said he was going to do what he wanted to. I think Punk may have felt in some way, whether it was the fact of what he said, or maybe it goes into something more. I don't know the precise details to give you, but it seems like CM Punk felt disrespected in some way. And there was an altercation that slightly grew out of that. Not necessarily anything big or huge, but it looked like, CM Punk had an issue with Perry, or Jack Perry, and Jack Perry was either removed from Collision. And I don't have all the notes to break that down completely at this time. So that was kind of the initial issue we had a couple weeks ago between Jack Perry and CM Punk that came out after CM Punk had kind of taken a shot at Hangman Page being a peg warmer. CM Punk came back later through text, apologized to Hangman, kind of stating that maybe that got taken out of context. What he was trying to allude to and what he said weren't really what he trying to mean. But I don't know. There's just it wasn't a great look in the situation, especially since CM Punk had just came back. We had just started Collision, and we were boiled in some controversy. So here we are at All In, the biggest wrestling event in wrestling history, the biggest wrestling event for AEW, the biggest wrestling pay-per-view for AEW. Their quote-unquote, what many people would have said was their coming out moment, their WrestleMania event, their coming to the stage moment. So high expectations for this, and unfortunately, before the show can even get off the ground, we have a mess. So apparently, in the 0 hour match, we had a match between Jack Perry and Hook for the FTW Championship. And in the beginning part of this match, of course, when Jack Perry came out, he came out in a British limo with 6 doors. He came out, and these two men met at the aisleway at the beginning of the match, and eventually wound up on top of the limo. We saw Jack Perry hit a RVD variation of the Rolling Thunder from the top of the limo onto the hood, onto Hook. And at that point, he proceeded to pound on the glass, going, I'm using real glass, cry me a river, directly into the camera. So this kind of enticed or incited CM Punk as a direct input or a direct shot at him. And you can understand that this, who else would Jack Perry be talking to if he's saying I'm using real glass? It really doesn't feed into any storyline because there's no storyline foretold about using fake glass or not real glass or whatever, to the fans, to us watching at home or watching live in the crowd, if the crowd at the arena even caught this. But the fact of the matter, there was no reason for him to make that statement unless he was making that statement for a purpose. So it's easily believable that he was taking a shot or making a comment directed at CM Punk on, a pay-per-view event, on a large event in front of a large audience. And so that being said, probably not the best choice of action, especially since Jack Perry and CM Punk don't seem to have any confrontation, and this was not anything that was in a storyline or anything we as fans would really understand unless you're in the IWC, unless you're reading wrestling highlights, reading wrestling news on the internet, unless you're watching programs like the program I'm bringing you and other wrestling content creators, where they're talking about events that are unfolding and what may be or may not be going on. So, anywho, that comment was said. CM Punk was sitting in the gorilla position, getting ready for his match, because him and Samoa Joe would have opened All In. Jack Perry and Hook were kind of the last match, leaving about 10 minutes in between the their match and the opening match on the All In card, which turned out to be Samoa Joe and CM Punk. So, as Jack Perry left the ringside, went back through into gorilla position, and he ran into CM Punk. Now, here's where we get multiple different variations. Some of it coming from Punk's group, some of it coming from other groups, some coming from people who support Jack Perry, some of it coming from people who support CM Punk, some people who are just kind of there. And so there's a tweet from Miro where saying this is fake. This didn't happen on a tweet. I don't necessarily know if Miro's saying the whole thing is fake. A lot of people are twisting it, saying Miro's trying to say none of it happened. I don't know if that's really what he was implying. He may have been saying this is fake news based on what that tweet said, which I don't have. But you have to kind of understand that something happened. We know this because at the scrum, immediately in the beginning of the scrum, Tony Khan covered some other things and then eventually announced, yes, before we get into it, before you ask me, there was an incident backstage at the beginning of the show or during the show, and he wasn't going to speak on it, but it was being investigated, and that's where he squashed it. So he did address it, did acknowledge something happened. So we do have to believe something in one of these forms or another happened. So the story goes that Jack Perry walked backstage, CM Punk was in gorilla position. One of two things either occurred. Either Jack Perry approached CM Punk in some form and did something, maybe he was walking by and shoulder bumped him, which enticed Punk more. There's a belief that Punk said, do you have something to say? Because after saying that on a pay-per-view event or a live event out there, you can kind of see Punk go, you got something to say? And that's fine and dandy. From there, it seems that either Punk threw a punch at Jack Perry, or Jack Perry may have shoved Punk, or Punk shaved Jack Perry. There was some altercation that eventually led into what we understand as CM Punk putting Jack Perry into some type of chokehold or hold maneuvers, some type of control maneuver. It was said that, in theory, this was Punk's, and this is nothing I have for a fact, but the idea was stated that Punk was using the choke hold, to subdue Jack until things can be calmed down, or he could get assistance with what was going on instead of getting into a quote-unquote physical altercation any more than it already was, or a full-on out fight. It was in at this time that it is now being reported now that the statement from Punk, again, this all comes out with a grain of salt. I don't have hard proof evidence of these things being said, but it was stated at some point that CM Punk threatened to quit AEW over all this. Like, if this doesn't get under control, he's going to just quit. Which is, that is a big statement if that is everything. And it's hard to say because Punk went out there and had a great match with Joe. Again, you'll notice I did kind of critique the Pepsi plunge. I thought it was a little off. Punk looked a little off. I don't know. The maneuver just did not come off good. They did not replay it. And it just didn't come out to like, this was a great match. I wish the plunge would have looked more real. Some of my compadres say, a mess up makes it look real. It fits in a fight because a fight's not always pretty, which you can kind of understand. But to me, it was just like it missed that last little ump. And I've noticed that I feel like Punk is kind of holding back at times. I don't know what that reason is. I don't know if he doesn't trust himself. I know he's gotten hurt. I know he doesn't want to miss any more time. He wants to be in this ring. He wants to be doing this. And I appreciate the compassion, but I don't know if there's something going on there. So the plunge wasn't my favorite ending. I mean, I think it was the right ending. Like, it needed to be done, but I wish it would have been done more like it felt like it had more impact to it. It just didn't feel like it had that impact for how good this match really was, unfortunately. So anyways, if Punk, I got to give credit to Punk if all this happened backstage and he was able to go out there and have this good of a match with Samoa Joe, and maybe he took some of that pent-up frustration at the moment and took it out there to deal with Joe. But again, I know he really respects Joe. They have a great friendship and bond, and they've done a lot of matches, Ring of Honor and other places. And so, you got to give him the credit. So CM Punk out there and did the job. Now, after the match, there is video footage. I mean, you can go back and watch different things, but it does look like security was following CM Punk. Now, the scenarios are different than this. Some have believed that security followed Punk to escort him out of the building because after the altercation, security got Jack Perry and made him leave the building. So after CM Punk left his match, it was either security. Some are saying that security came to him and told him to leave, or the bigger story I'm getting and understanding is that Punk asked for security to go with him to his locker room. It was in Punk in his locker room was like, should I stay or should I go? And it was best thought that he would go ahead and go. So he was, basically escorted, not in the same way maybe Jack Perry was. Jack Perry was pretty much forced to leave, as I understand it, with security. It seems like security walked out Punk, who left on his own volition, but just wanted to make sure there was no further altercations or any other confrontations in that time being why he was there until he left. So, unfortunately, this has become the big talking point of the weekend now. We should all be sitting here talking about All In, but we're here talking about another issue with Punk's name being involved. And in a lot of ways, a lot of it reflects on Punk. Now, there's people out here who are just going after Jack Perry like he is the villain, like this is all his fault. He shouldn't have triggered Punk. He shouldn't have said anything. What do you expect? If you do this to Punk, you're going to get the Punk reaction. Other people are just burying Punk, going, he's a high risk. He's out of control. Why is he attacking younger stars? Why does he care? Blah, 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 blah. And I think, in this whole situation, it's getting really blown up more than it ever needs to be. There are a few outlets that are now reporting that Jack Perry and CM Punk, from sources within inside the company, are believed to have been suspended or will be suspended based on the fallout of the investigation by IEW, which I would safely have to assume after the last one, another physical altercation, maybe not as drastic as the last one, but another one that seems to be happening. I would assume that somebody would be suspended or both parties would be suspended. It does seem like both parties did more than just, I think once you touch hands in a physical manner, you've crossed the line. Now, last year you can go to All Out and say, okay, maybe, Punk shouldn't have said what he said at the live press conference, and part of that also falls on Tony Khan's hands. Tony Khan probably should have taken a time out and tried to let, help Punk redirect that, or been like, hey, let's not do this here. Let's do this somewhere else and discuss it. And Punk said what he needed to say. It led to an altercation. Now you kind of look at it differently because Punk was just kind of a wrestler in the company. We don't believe at that time. I mean, there's some rumors and speculation. A lot of people believe that, no, not a lot of people, but there's a lot of belief that Punk maybe in some type of capacity, either running Collision or working with Tony Khan or own, part into the ownership or some type of management or whatever, because of different things he said. And none of this can be proven. But the big thing is with All Out, Punk said what he said, and you can take it one way or another. Should he have said it there? Maybe, maybe not. Should Tony Khan cut him off and redirected that conversation? There's a good possibility that maybe Tony Khan should have done something at that point. But what was said was said. Now, that didn't allow anybody to go ahead and do what came after that. So, with the Bucks confronting Punk along with Omega, and a lot of the things it seems to be more like the Bucks were the initiators of this conversation, or they kind of put themselves more out there than they should have. Omega was just trying to keep things calm and controlled, but everybody was there we weren't there. Only the people who were there really kind of know what happened. But the big thing is the Bucks and Omega were also in a position of quote unquote, we'll call it power. I mean, they're EVPs, they're executive vice presidents of the company. They are more than just, wrestlers in a wrestling capacity. And so at some point you have to look at it and go, okay, well, they should have known much better to not have escalated the situation in the way they did, because they're executive vice presidents. And so they should have, in a business sense, directed themselves in a more business professional manner than they did. So, I think there might have been some overreaction. I think the Young Bucks probably, from everything I've gathered, were kind of initiators of this. I think Punk felt threatened to an extent that they're both coming at him, and I think things escalated real quickly in that environment. There seems to be some chaos going on in the locker room of AEW. So I think, I less blame maybe Punk in some of that, because I do understand where he may have felt he was threatened and was trying to keep it safe in the whole mess, and it blew up, and I think it blew way up bigger than it ever needed to be, and it's a sad situation. So all parties got suspended, all parties got stripped of titles at the time, things had changed, CM Punk was out on injury. We come to earlier in the summer, and then we get Collision. At the beginning of Collision, we have CM Punk there, and then we have some altercations with other members of the roster. Ryan Nemeth, who had tweeted that Punk was the softest man he knew, blah, blah, blah. This upset Punk. Punk pretty much shoot out Ryan Nemeth in what seemed to be in what is being relayed as a public forum, and kind of to show who, that I'm Punk, you're not going to do this, and maybe to set of ground rules. Punk's really been about, he doesn't want the drama, he doesn't want the chaos, which I can respect. I wouldn't want a bunch of drama and chaos either. We've known Punk in the previous issues with Jack Perry. There was the shoot promo against Hangman Adam Page when he wasn't even in a storyline with Hangman Page. Then there was the story that Page had came to Collision and was told he couldn't be there to go record the segment somewhere else. We know the storyline, or not the storyline, but the story with Christopher Daniels, who's the head of talent relations, came to Collision but was told to leave. Part of it believed because Punk says, well, he's a part of their team. If May Steele can't be here, he shouldn't be here. We know there was altercations with, there was some type of altercation between CM Punk and Matt Hardy that may have been not that big of a deal. And so there's just a lot. It seems like a lot of stories being read that Punk has a lot of power, that people are being sent home that may not be on Punk's team, or Punk feels are not on his team. And again, this is all relative news information. This is people saying this or saying that, and everything else. So it just depends on how. It depends on what you believe or want to believe. I mean, a lot of this is just news stories that's being put out there, and we try to figure out and decipher what may be true and what not may be true. Now, as far as All In, I think, I don't think we need to villainize anybody here. Did Jack Perry make a statement live that was probably not necessary? Yes. I agree that Jack Perry probably did not need to say that. Excuse me. Did Jack Perry make a statement that he probably shouldn't have on a live pay-per-view event in front of a large crowd that size? No. Did he go into business for himself? Maybe. I mean, he made a statement. He was trying to make a point. Apparently, the point was heard. It didn't come back maybe the way he wanted it to. But again, Jack Perry's probably younger and not so aware of some things. They come from an independent scene. They come from an AEW that was a little more of a Wild Wild West theory where, all friends wrestling, sometimes it's referred to. So if you're good with the Bucks, you kind of get freedom. And so there was a little more freedom to say things and do things. So you kind of, the inexperience for Jack Perry, maybe he didn't really understand the ramifications of what he was saying. Maybe he really did. And, I want to try and look at the good side of it and the better side of it and say maybe he just didn't really take in the full impact of what something like that would say, that his intent may have not been to create a controversy backstage, and maybe it was. Maybe he wanted to stir up something. Maybe who knows? I'm not Jack Perry. I can't read his mind, but we know he made the statement. This then led to him going backstage, and a confrontation happened. Is it Jack Perry who initially punched Punk, walked by Punk, and was like, hey, and elbowed him? That could make sense. He's walking by, and he just wants to show up Punk because he felt Punk belittled him the last time, or tried to keep him from doing what he wanted to do, which set a whole other course of things into motion. It's hard to say. Of course, also with Punk, we know he's been a little more quick to emotions. Gets a little more fired up. I think Punk's trying to do something good here. He wants to do something good here, but he's frustrated. We have heard a history that Punk can be short-tempered, that Punk can be a moody individual, that Punk can very much be triggered fairly easily. And that doesn't say that he's a bad person. It's just, and if you watch Punk's documentary, you get a story background. The one that WWE put out, you kind of get a story background on who Punk is and a lot of things he's gone through. And, of course, the fallout of WWE and how they, fired him and let him go from WWE at that time was not good. There was a lot of fallout of there that really left a bitter taste in his mouth. And I understand. He was bitter with WWE on a lot of things. He didn't feel they were really doing what was best for business, at least in his mindset. And I think a lot of fans agreed with him. I don't think WWE was focused on the mindset like we were or CM Punk was. It wasn't about the fans. It was about the money. And we've seen that point. Of course, they're making money, so they're doing what they need to do to make that money. So there was a lot of bitterness in that fallout. We know his fallout with his friend Colt Cabana. They were former really close friends, and stuff happens. We know that he's had a history with relationships that have gotten sour, and Punk is not one. I mean, I don't know if he's one. He's never really mentioned being one that forgives but not forgets. I don't know if he's forgiven people but doesn't forget and doesn't trust them again, which is fine. I can understand that. But I do feel like sometimes he may hold on to a grudge. He may really hold that in. Like, once you burn him, you're done. And I can understand a lot of learning from history about Punk and watching videos and listening to what he said about his history. He can come off as somebody that holds a grudge, and once you burn that bridge, there's not a way to fix it, and not with him at least. He just doesn't come off as that type of person. He may with certain people if you really take the steps. He's not a bad guy. I think Punk really intends well, but I think he has a personality that can be very difficult to work with, and I definitely think he wants to be a veteran leader in the locker room, and then when the younger guys make him feel or do something that makes him feel like he's been disrespected, I think it really rubs him the wrong way. If he's threatened to quit AEW this time, if that statement is true, that after all this, he's like, I'm out of here if we don't get this shit circulated, I can understand it. This isn't to bash Perry. This isn't about bashing CM Punk. I'm not here to bash either of them. I'm just trying to represent the news in the best way I can and try to come to an understanding where we can find some neutral ground to say, we understand this wasn't the way we wanted this to happen, and put it out there to you all so we know what's going on, because that's what I'm here to do. I've got to report the news. It's what we do, and it's key. So, anywho, with that being said, I think in some of this context, Punk probably should have been, he's the veteran, he's the wiser, and of course, after last year's incidents, I would think Punk would probably be a little more, would have to understand that he's got to control, no matter what these guys say to him, to take him off that, maybe stepping away and going, look, whatever's going on with you, I don't have time to deal with it, I got other things to go do, or walk away and go look and go take it to Tony Khan going, hey, you deal with it or I'm going to deal with it. I don't think putting hands on anybody was the right situation. If Punk put him in a choke to detain him, and I understand if he's coming at you, but I would have thought from previous, maybe Punk would find a different way to deal with it, and maybe he thought by just holding him in a chokehold, it was the right thing in the meantime. I don't know all the details. If Punk gets suspended again, along with Jack Perry. Jack Perry, this would be Jack Perry's first suspension that we know of. It would be the second time for Punk to be suspended. And I guess as Tony Khan, you really got to decide what the future holds again if you have to suspend CM Punk in another kind of situation that has again overshadowed your event that a lot of stars put the effort in, and when a lot of stars put their best foot forward and tried to come out there and shine, and Tony Khan worked hard to get this card together in a way. I know a lot of people are upset because it seemed it was like last minute he started building this card, and it did kind of come off that way. He gave us a week of matches. Luckily, I think he really tried to make it up by doing the next week where he was giving us, yes, he nailed us with video package after video package after video package, but I really think he was trying to build stories and give emphasis on every match that was involved at this card and try to get you interested and understand how we got here. I think in the end he did good. I think the overall pay-per-view was really good. Was it the greatest wrestling event ever? Yes. Did it live up? Yeah, it was good. I don't know if it rates higher than some other events. I think some other events for AEW were a little better than this event, but there was a lot of good matches. I thought we saw a really good Stadium Stampede match, it turned out. CM Punk and Samoa Joe really gave us a good match. The ending was a little blah for me, but that was just it was a good match, and it just didn't feel like, for who they were and how they had built this match, that ending really felt like it was impactful enough to move on. The Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Ibushi match, yeah, it was a good match. I don't know if it was the best match. FTR Young Bucks match was good. Land a little wrong for me. I know they were trying to tell a lot of story in that time. The Stadium Stampede match really was the point where I thought it started picking up. Jericho and Ospreay brought a good match. We saw Saraya become the world women's champion, and what was a really good match and really good storyline fitting in there. The House of Black and the Acclaim with Billy Gunn, new trios tag team champions. A lot of people are upset that the House of Black didn't get the real title run. It is what it is. I think it was a decent match. It made a good storyline. And, of course, we got MJF and Adam Cole. A lot of people crapping on this match. A lot of people crapping on the whole storyline of how we got here. I thought the storyline's been great. I think the storyline that we're being told is great. It's going to continue on. This isn't the end. We've got more to say. I think the match made sense in the way it needed to go. So we have to see. But overall, it's sad that this great match, and that's kind of why I'm trying to close out with all of this. It was great. It was a great event. All In really was great. It did a good job. And we need to really focus on that and get away from having to talk about things that happen in the back scenes. Punk and Perry, it happened. It's unfortunate that this happened. It's unfortunate that Punk, his name is again in the headlines in a negative light. And hopefully this can be resolved. Hopefully we can figure out ways to appropriately deal with this. Maybe this is Punk's exit. Maybe Punk's like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. Maybe Tony Khan goes, we can't, who knows? I hate to see it. I love to see Punk be what Punk is. I think Punk needs to go heel after, a lot of this, the old school Punk. But we will see. Anyways, I'm the Big Time. This has been another Rants. I thank you for joining us right here on the Value Wrestling. Go ahead and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Ring that bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up. Leave your comments down below. Check out Spotify for New Japan Pro Wrestling and other content over there with our buddy Miguel. He joined us at the Break It Down. That should be up. We have a weekly roundup coming up. We have the Break It Down where we broke down All In 2023. I have a rant that came out before this one, talking about Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk. So hopefully all those will come out. This is the next rant where we talk about, Punked again. Stuff happens, but we're here. I'm here. The Value of Wrestling is here to cover the news, keep you updated, let you know what's going on. We're trying to work on creating new content, new programs to put right here on YouTube. It is a great deal of help if you are out there subscribing to the channel, if you're sharing our videos. We want to grow. We want to become big. We want to become contenders in this market, and we're hoping that you will help us do it. Again, I'm the Big Time BT Baldwin. This has been the Value of Wrestling. Let me see here. Can I get the theme music back up? Oh, there we go. We're going to start it back up as I exit out. I thank you for joining me